before you develop any program or any formulations, you have to know what are the main causes of the chronic diseases. And if you make the statement that increase oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, and excessive release of glutamate are associated with most human chronic diseases, I don't think anybody can argue with that. And therefore, the question is, if you can reduce these cellular defects at the same time, not one at a time, at the same time, then you can reduce the risk of developing various kind of illnesses, and therefore you will be in a good health. And so this is very important. The question is how you do it. People in the past have tried to do with a single antioxidant or a single even CBD, and as you know, it works with we have the animal model of almost all human diseases. And when you use a single antioxidant or CBD alone, it works remarkably well in improving the symptoms of the disease. But when it goes to human, the story is different, and I will tell you why. The question, how do you reduce oxidative stress and inflammation at the same time? You have to increase the antioxidant enzymes like glutathione peroxidase, catalase, superoxide dismutase. So you have to increase it. You have to also increase the dietary antioxidant that we take from the diet, as well as body-made antioxidant, because all of this gets down-regulated when you get sick or you have chronic diseases. Also, you have to increase the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines and reduce glutamate level. The question is, how do you do all those? Excuse me. Well, we can do, for example, Micro Daily enhances. We have Micro Daily enhances or activate NERV2. And once NERV2 is activated, they move from cytoplasm to the nucleus, where they can produce a lot of antioxidant enzymes. So Micro Daily can enhance the production of antioxidant enzyme by activating NERV2. Micro Daily can also increase the level of dietary antioxidant as well as the endogenous antioxidant. Micro Daily can prevent the toxicity of glutamate. That's very important. So you can see that Micro Daily is the only agent which can reduce the cellular defects, namely increased oxidative stress, increased inflammation, and increased glutamate level. At the same time, this is very important. For example, aspirin, you can reduce inflammation with aspirin, but it has nothing to do with oxidative stress. So I can say that the commercial market, we are the only one who can do all these things at the same time. Now, many people will say that, oh yeah, your Micro Daily is same like any other vitamin. And I will tell you by giving a couple of examples that why this is not the case. Still is okay, The Micro Daily has a 2-retinal palmitate as well as beta carotene as a separate ingredient. Most industry people think, nutrition industry, that vitamin A and beta carotene are same. But this is not true. For example, beta carotene can induce a protein called connexin protein, which holds the two normal cells together. When the cell becomes cancerous, connexin gene gets lost. But vitamin A cannot, or vitamin A or E cannot induce connexin gene. So you can see that beta carotene performs certain biological function that vitamin A cannot do it. In the same manner, vitamin A can perform an important role in differentiation of various types of cell, like muscle cell, nerve cell, but beta carotene can do it. So there are several examples that these two, even though that beta carotene is a precursor of vitamin A, one molecule of beta carotene will generate 2 molecules of vitamin A. But in addition to that, they also perform different function, but industry thinks it is the same. That's why in their label you will see sometimes, mostly, that vitamin A from beta carotene. So they don't treat vitamin A and beta carotene as a separate ingredient, and this combination is important for your benefit, for your health. So that's one unique difference with any other product in the marketplace. The second one is that it contains vitamin E in two forms, vitamin E acetate and vitamin E succinate. And I was the one who discovered the function of vitamin E succinate in early 1982. And before that, you could not find any one paper on vitamin E succinate. But today, if you go on the internet, you will have a 500 or more showing the benefit of vitamin E succinate in varieties of illnesses, not only cancer that I initially discovered for. And vitamin E succinate is also most effective form of vitamin E because it is more soluble, therefore it enters the cell very easily and it can cross blood-brain barrier. And it is slowly converted to alpha-tocopherol, and alpha-tocopherol form is the vitamin our body uses it. Acetate get converted to alpha-tocopherol acetate form more quickly, and therefore it is available to body to use it for their function. So, but in most of the commercial product, we'll have either vitamin E acetate or vitamin E. Sometimes they use vitamin E succinate since I discovered this early 1982. It also contains both antioxidant that we take from the diet and antioxidant that our body makes it. Many commercial products you will see, they will have the antioxidant that we take from the diet, and they ignore the antioxidant that our body makes it. And in order to have the optimal effect, it is important that in our preparation we have both forms of antioxidant. Another thing is, when I developed it, my first goal was make sure the doses are safe. But today we can say that all the ingredients of Micro Daily are not only safe, but it is also effective, and I will give you some example later on. And another thing is that these micronutrients, these ingredients, do not adversely interact with other prescription or non-prescription drug. So one doesn't have to worry about its interaction in different way. Now, the form is very important as well. For example, vitamin A, we have included vitamin A as a retinal palmitate. This is the form the liver will store for future use. So this is quickly absorbed and stored in the liver if there are excess amount of vitamin A for future use. Another thing is selenium. We have selenium, as you know, is a cofactor for glutathione peroxidase, and selenium is very important for your health. And we have added selenium in the form of selenomethionine because this is the form our body uses it. Many ingredients will have many commercial product will have a selenium oxide, which is poorly absorbed, therefore not as effective. So these are the unique feature, and we also, this is also equally important what we did not include in Micro Daily. We did not include in Micro Daily iron, copper, or manganese, and you can ask why. Because most of the commercial product, you will see they will have one or all three. these are called trace mineral because your body needs a tiny amount for your survival. If you have a deficiency of any of these ingredients, you can be sick or eventually you can die. So it is absolutely essential, but slight excess of these micronutrients can increase the risk of many human chronic diseases. And so, and it is also, this is not my discovery, it is well known that iron when combined with vitamin C generates excessive amount of free radicals. As a matter of fact, if you want to study the effect of free radical alone, in test tube you add iron and vitamin C, and then some material that you want to see the effect of free radicals. This is one and only way to study the effect of pure free radical on a biological system. So we said that there is no reason for. Not only that, but in the presence of antioxidant, these trace mineral is absorbed quicker. And if they absorb quicker, they will go to your bloodstream and all over the organ. And nature has provided no mechanism of excretion or elimination of these trace minerals among men of all ages and women after menopause. There is no mechanism. Until if you're nice enough to give blood donation to some agency, then that's the only way you can get rid of iron or copper if you have excess amount. Otherwise, nature has no method. So an increase, if you absorb better, this will increase the body store of iron much quicker than otherwise. And once it is saturated, then you have a free iron copper floating around and generating a lot of excessive amount of free radicals. And as a matter of fact, if you go to internet or PubMed and try to see how many paper has been published, excess of iron, you must feel more than 500 paper showing that excess iron stored in your body can increase the risk of many chronic diseases. And so is the copper. And there was another paper published in a very prestigious journal, Proceeding National Academy of Sciences, showing that the high level of copper can increase the risk of dementia. And for me, it was a very concern. But anyway, when I designed this product, I knew all these things, but didn't know the result of these things. And so we have not added iron, copper, manganese in our preparation. We also have not added another things is heavy metal. Most of the commercial vitamins that you will see multiple vitamin preparation, they have a zirconium or molybdenum. And anytime you eat a food which are taken from the ground, like salad if you take, for example, they will have enough heavy metal. Ground has a lot of heavy metals. And so, but heavy metal in a small amount, your body don't need it, but they have no mechanism of, again, excretion of these heavy metals from your body among men of all ages and women after menopause. So if you're taking with multiple with Micro Daily, say for example, or any multiple vitamin, we don't have it, but if you take it, over long term they will accumulate, and higher level of any heavy metal, including D1, can be neurotoxic. It can affect brain function. And therefore I said, why I will add in a Micro Daily. So we did not added that. Now the question is that most of the commercial preparation you will see that they recommend once a day. But it is known that the vitamin that we have, micronutrient in Micro Daily, they will be eliminated at a different rate from your body. And some of them by 50% are removed by the evening, another half is eliminated by next morning, causing a great fluctuation in the level of vitamin in the body. Any change, and I have shown this and I will show you next slide, in any change in the concentration of antioxidant causes marked alteration in the expression of genes. And rapid increase in genetic activity can possibly do error at one time and can cause mutation that could be harmful. So in order to maintain the relatively steady level of vitamin in the body, we have recommended that you take Micro Daily twice a day, have one in the morning, one in the evening, and because some of these antioxidants are fat soluble, and therefore we say we take with some kind of a food which has some amount of fat. Here is an example of how the small changes in a gene, you can see the large expression. This I did when I was in Denver. And I didn't do myself, but my colleague did in the lab. My technician did it. You can see that in a control, you have and higher the red, the more genes are expressed. And there were 12 genes in a chip. Once you know it, is like cooking hamburger. It's not look very complicated, but person who knows it is very easy. It's time consuming, but easy. So control. You can see that vitamin E succinate. Even 2 microgram of vitamin E succinate in neuroblastoma cell culture that I was working on a cancer cell, it has no effect, either good or bad, on a cell. If you see, they are as happy as the other one, as the control one. But when you make a genetic analysis, you can see that it is extremely high level of changes in gene expression. If you go to 20 microgram, which will kill everybody, all cells, you can see that there is a marked difference in the expression of the gene. And with these kind of variations, we felt that the variation that occurs after taking the multiple vitamin in your body is not good for you, because this will cause an alteration in gene expression, and if they have to do every day, that this can do error one time and then can cause a problem. So that's why it is very important, and some of the benefit that we are seeing with Micro Daily, one reason also is that our dosage schedule is twice, half in the morning and half in the evening. Now here is first, I will show you some animal experiment that we did in terms of radiation protection. And the first study was on a sheep. In this country, we can't get a permission from Animal Research Committee to do on higher animal until you take a couple of years, and still it is tough. And so, but this was done in collaboration with NASA in Houston, who has a collaboration with Russian Academy of Sciences. So we provided the samples of antioxidant that we have in Micro Daily and sent them to Russia. And they started in a sheep. But unfortunately, when they were designing the experiment, they did not consult me. And they used such a heavy dose in the beginning that all sheep will die if you don't do anything, just give radiation in 7 days. And what they did not give any other support. That they just gave the antioxidant that we have in Micro Daily, and then sheep lives from 37 to 39 days. So it increased the survival time, at least showing the concept that Micro Daily can protect against radiation injury. This was very important to know in a conceptual sense. But if we would have given, for example, some other kind of therapy like antibiotics, blood transfusion or something, maybe we would have been able to save it. But just giving the antioxidant of Micro Daily, you can increase the survival after such exposure of such a massive dose. The next study with the mice, and even to get a mice permission, it took 6 months to get the approval. And the experiment we did with the Department of Department of Radiobiology Research Institute of Department of Defense in Bethesda. So even there, they have to do it. So they did a mice study, and it took, again, 6 months to get the permission. So we provided the antioxidant mixture of Micro Daily that increased the survival of mice from 0, if you don't give any antioxidant, to a 40% who lived happily for a long time. Later on, probably they will develop cancer and other things, but at least we saved provided good quality life to mice for a while. They live only 3 years anyway, but at least in 3 years they live happily. But maybe last 6 months they will have a problem because they got radiation, and even though we saved them. But so this is very important study to show. So since then, if I go for a dental X-ray or any kind of ionizing radiation, make sure that I take my Micro Daily, because, and not only that, but there was another study was done in Europe that again we gave this antioxidant of Micro Daily formula. And you must have taken, at least I have gone through one CT scan. One CT scan can induce DNA damage that can be detected in your blood. And it is because the method nowadays is so sensitive that you can see it. So this in European hospital, this was done, and the work was published in a journal called Radiology, which is a Bible for radiologists, because it's a highly prestigious journal. And so this information was published there. So this patient got one CT scan, measured the DNA. Another group of patients got this antioxidant half an hour before going through the CT scan, and they saw the reduction in a DNA damage over 50%. So that's amazing that you can just with one dose, a small dose, because it was amazing. And since our body, since those of you who take all the time, it is very high level. So if you take an extra one, it will be protected more than just 50%. Here is another study was done again. This was done in collaboration with NASA in Houston and with Russian Academy. So the experiment was done in Russia, where it is easy to get a permission to do the experiment on higher animal. This was poor rabbit. And again, I was not consulted regarding what dose I should use it. I wouldn't have suggested, but they used the dose that higher than what they give to sheep. In this case, the animal lived only 4 hours. If it is exposed to human, the similar kind of dose in human will live for 24 hours. Because it is a damage due to the damage to the brain. That's why it is called central nervous system syndrome. So all mice died. They had a placebo. You can see that. Oops. Oh, no. You can see the placebo has a dark lung. There is no protection. But the antioxidant group got protected, some, even though they all died, but liver, the lung got protected. Again, demonstrating the principle that it has a radioprotective effect. This is very important to realize that. This is another study we did with NASA, who has a big laboratory in Moffett, California, and I visited them, and this lady scientists were working on a fruit fly. Have you seen fruit fly? Have you ever saw fruit? Actually, I never saw fruit fly. I was working killing mostly rat and mice, and I always used to say that you are giving your life for a good cause, namely my thesis, and you will go to heaven. But in this case, it was a fruit fly, and this lady gave they were interested in proton radiation, and proton radiation is 10 times more damaging than X-ray or gamma ray. And the reason they used proton radiation, because when we go on the moon surface and our have a colony, during solar flare-up, proton radiation are emitted. So our astronauts are likely to exposed, if they are a little further away from the camp, to proton radiation rather than X-ray or gamma type of radiation. So they use routinely to want to know what happens, how much damage proton radiation can cause. So I suggested to her that maybe you can try the antioxidant that we have prepared for animal study, which is an antioxidant of Micro Daily, and she agreed to. And then what happens? She inserted a cancer-causing gene to fruit fly. So now if you see the larva of fruit fly, and if they have inserted cancer gene, you see the darker spot on the larva moving around. And so you can see the cancer. And so what she did, we suggested that give the fruit fly, and fruit fly diet is a semi-solid media. It is not like a bread or rice, but they eat a semi-solid media. So in media, they mixed up the antioxidant, and orally, they probably ate whatever they want to eat. And so they fed them for 7 days before giving proton radiation. And proton radiation by itself will cause 100% of the fruit fly will develop cancer. Normally they develop a 5 or 10%, but if you give a proton radiation, they will all develop cancer. But when they fed antioxidant 7 days before and 7 days after, none of them developed cancer. It was remarkable, because many times we think that genetic disease, we can't do anything about it. For example, if you have a genetics of Alzheimer, people get afraid, or cancer, or any, and we wait for the symptoms. Once the symptom appears, then you start treating them. But if you examine the people who are carrying a genetic risk and measure their level of oxidative stress and inflammation, you will see they are very high compared to, say, even they measure and compared to people who are not at risk in the same family. And so the question is, why don't you reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation, say, and therefore delay it at least. You can't correct the disease, you can't correct the DNA mutation, but you can delay the appearance, because mutation per se is not harmful per se. It produces a bad protein which causes all kind of damage. So if you block the production of protein, for example, then in that scenario, it will be, at least you can delay the onset of the disease instead of appearing when, say, 40, 45 years age. It may appear when you are 90 or over. By the time most of us are ready to leave this planet anyway. This was another study. This was again done. This study was done at the Naval Health Research Center, NHRC, and there the study was a 12-week study on a Marine Corps, and again it took a long time. It took about a year to get the approval from IRB, which is the Institutional Review Board, to start the experiment. Once we started the experiment, and these are all 18-year-old kids, and they will get training in a Palm 29, which is really a terrible environmental point of view, and therefore, and I thought that they might not show any effect on oxidative stress. That was the criteria. We felt that does Micro Daily reduces oxidative stress in a Marine under training of high stress. And you can see that at least in a placebo, it was a double-blind placebo type of study, and you can see that a 34% showed increased oxidative damage compared to baseline value before the treatment started. But Micro Daily group showed 82% of the Marines showed reduced oxidative damage compared to the baseline value before the treatment. And also, Micro Daily was found to be safe. So this was very encouraging results. The next study we did in a Naval Medical Center. So all veterans coming from war zones around the world, they go through, first they will go to Germany, and they spend a couple of weeks there in hospital, and then came for a further treatment in a Naval Medical Center in San Diego. And Captain Hoffer was in charge of this program. And you can see that the study again was 12 weeks, and these people, these veterans coming from the war in Afghanistan and showing the sign of dizziness and also balancing problem because they were exposed to concussive injury. And so they were divided into two groups. One group got a standard therapy that they have been doing all along. Another group got the standard therapy plus Micro Daily. And you can see that within 12 weeks, the veterans who were on a combined groups showed much better. Combined treatment was much better than the standard therapy alone. Oops. Here is the measurement of the dizziness, and you can see that how many criteria Dr. Hoffer used to evaluate quantitatively, and these are all the measures for the dizziness and balancing problem. And in all cases, you can see that there was a marked improvement within 12 weeks. That's amazing if you think it. And if you would have continued for 6 months, probably all these criteria would have further improved. Another study was done in Denver when I was there, and Dr. Jeffrey Boone, who is a prominent cardiologist, and he's also a cardiologist of Bronco NFL team. So he's very, very good one. And this study was done 1 year, and he gave a Micro Daily, and another group that he was treating is a statin, simvastatin, last one. And he took a sample of 6 months and 1 year. And after 1 year, he saw that the lipid profile improved as good as with a statin. So he was calling them as a poor man's Lipitor because it is much cheaper than Micro Daily than a statin drugs. And so so in that way, he said, okay. And a statin, as you know, has some side effects. This Micro Daily has no side effect. But the most important thing that impressed me was not the same lipid profile improvement, but there is another criteria he was measuring. He was measuring the thickness of carotid artery wall, called IMT. And in a simvastatin group, and this will be thickened as you grow older. And so in a statin group, they continue to grow, but in a Micro Daily group, this one did not change at all during 1 year period. I mean, this is amazing result of Micro Daily from biological point of view, because they not only affected the lipid profile, but also prevented the rise of thickness or increase in thickness of the carotid wall. Because when it gets thickened, it gets narrow, and then blood flow gets slowed down, then it can cause all kind of problem. So that was, for me, as a biologist, it was most effective, not the improved Lipitor, but also it can affect the biological tissue. It is amazing. This is just the 6-month trial. You can see that here. They call it Maverick trial, but I'm telling you Micro Daily. That's a fancy name for something that he figured out. Again, he's showing that you can see that the thickness was 0.05 millimeter, and then in an antioxidant group there was nothing. It really, if you look at it, is very impressive from cardiac point of view. Most of the old people have a cardiac issue. I might have, I don't know, but here is another study that in the United States there are 40 million people who suffer from tinnitus or ringing of the ear. Sometimes we call tinnitus or tinnitus. I have heard all kind of different terminology. Indian terminology is tinnitus. But so you can see in these cases, they measured the THI or tinnitus handicap inventory, and this was done in a private practice setting. So there was no placebo trial. It was before and after treatment with Micro Daily, and you can see that the 62% were responded it, and there was various grade of improvement. Again, a sample size is small, but at least should show you a potential that people who are suffering from tinnitus can be a very good improvement will show. Another thing is that this is an anecdotal story, but this tells you about hearing disorders. It will have a very important impact in not only in tinnitus, but any kind of hearing problem. And the reason is because, again, increased oxidative stress and inflammation play a major role in these kind of hearing disorders. And I have just one paper published, I was telling David Nemelka just last week, where we have tried to show that how micronutrient, we can't say Micro Daily because that will be a conflict in a publication. So use the Micro Daily, and you don't give the dose, but you give the formulation. But and you also declare also conflicts. I always declare that I'm Chief Scientific Officer of Engage Global, who sells nutritional product. So you have to declare all this conflict when you submit the paper. But anyway, they were accepted, and it will be coming out soon. And so it is. So another just anecdotal story, but it's kind of interesting. With the previous company that I was working, we went for fundraising to a good rich people in San Diego, in New Mexico, and he was a hunter, and so he took the CEO. I didn't go, and so he said that, yeah, I will give you some money, but will it help in hearing? I have a hearing problem. He didn't have a full blown, but he has a hearing problem. I hear less, and his wife was same way. And so I said, I don't know at that time. We didn't test it. And so he said, we try for 3 months. If you don't get it, don't give us the money. But anyway, after 3 months, we visited him again, not me, but my CEO, and said, how you are doing? He said, I'm doing very well. How about your wife? Well, she has one problem. Now when I curse, she can hear it. That was very, very amusing. But anyway, so that's enough. So it is, I have seen this kind of before even we tested all these things. I was not sure, but I was speculating that since the increased oxidative stress, inflammation is involved in almost all diseases, Micro Daily will help. This was my prediction, but sometimes prediction most of the time is never come true. But this time it is coming most of the time, it is true. This is the experiment I was telling you in Europe was done, where one CT scan, and if you give them before radiation, one CT scan, the DNA damage is reduced by over 50%. Now I will try to, after Micro Daily, we also develop a product called Brain Boost. Since I was getting old, I thought I should develop something which can help me reduce the prospect of dementia. And so I started studying about it more. And it was interesting to find out that about 5 to 7% of neurons are lost every 10 years. Did you know that? You think that neuron is subtle, it is okay. No, it's not true. And if there is a loss of cholinergic neuron, which is responsible for memory, you can get a Alzheimer's disease. If there is a loss of dopamine neuron from your brain, you can have a Parkinson's disease. So the question is, this is a normal rate. Why it happens? Brain uses 25% of respired oxygen. because it needs a lot of oxygen to generate energy. And anytime you use oxygen as a byproduct is free radicals formation. You can't do it. Mitochondria takes so much oxygen that 2% it cannot use it. So 2% of oxygen leaks out from mitochondria, and mitochondria is the tiniest structure in this cell, but without that you will not have any energy. That's the one place our energy are generated. And so it is leaks out and generates billions of free radicals. And free radicals, as you know, it is very unpaired electron that makes them highly reactive. But you would have thought that if brain is producing so much free radicals, they should have a higher level of antioxidant. Nature should have given it, but nature didn't. So brain has the lowest level of antioxidant. And on the top of that, brain has the highest level of unsaturated fatty acids, which are easily damaged by free radicals. So it is all against brain. But then you can say that how come we start functioning right now very well? Well, brain has what is called a functional plasticity. So you can perform with a reduced number of neurons. So the clinical symptom of disease does not appear until 70% of the neurons are lost. So the question is, if you know that we are losing 5 to 7% of neuron every 10 years, and because you are producing a lot of free radicals in the brain, so can we reduce the rate of loss? And therefore, our brain don't lose when I'm 65 or 70, all this kind of disease. And one way you can do it by supplying additional antioxidant to the brain that nature did not provide it. We know how to do it. So that stimulated me to develop Brain Boost. Now here are the 3 characteristics of Brain Boost. Oh, too fast, no. So the question is then when I was trying to develop Brain Boost, another 10 minutes. When I was trying to develop Brain Boost, we knew that most of the chronic neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, the brain has a poor capacity to generate energy. So the question before me, what I can do to increase brain so that makes sure that brain is producing more energy. What can be done? So we provided a 3 separate ingredient that will provide a fuel to the brain to make more energy. One was coenzyme Q10, which is present in Micro Daily. So I said we should increase the dose. So we did. Second is vitamin B3. Vitamin B3 is the only vitamin which can not only provide a fuel to mitochondria, but also it can increase the formation of new mitochondria. No other vitamin can do it. So even though vitamin B3 we have in Micro Daily, but we further increase the dose of vitamin B3 in Brain Boost. The third important thing was resveratrol. You may have heard resveratrol, right? Everybody knows it. If you drink red wine, this thing, you will be happy. But really the data says that whether you take a red wine or white wine, it is the effect of a small amount of alcohol that is providing a benefit, not what is there. It is the alcohol effect. Because people were excited, so they started drinking just red wine. But when the literature comes out that really white wine is as good as long as you take low amount. Until you are in a party, then you can forget about it. Once in a while you can cross the boundary. So those are 3, and resveratrol not only provide additional fuel, but it is also a powerful anti-inflammation and antioxidant. So it has a double purpose in providing protection to mitochondria. We also, and resveratrol is not in Micro Daily. We also added a coenzyme, the curcumin. Being Indian, I use curcumin routinely in Indian dishes, and so, but we wanted to take some additional amount. So we added curcumin, and curcumin is very powerful, more powerful than any other antioxidant. Curcumin is so powerful. So, and that's why Indian people don't get very sick in terms of cardiac and other issues. But I don't know whether it's curcumin, but at least curcumin is good for you. So we added curcumin. Another very important thing we added is 2 phospholipids. The brain is extremely rich in phospholipid, which forms the membrane, which is a precursor of membrane of the neuron. And you want neuron to be strong so that no toxic agent can enter into the nerve cell. And so in order to do that, we picked up from the literature we found that 2 phospholipids, one is phosphatidylserine, another is phosphodietyl-choline. These 2 phospholipids be provided so that the brain nerve cell remain strong. And in an animal study, they showed that they can reduce themselves. They can reduce the risk of dementia. So there was enough reason for me to add it. And turned out that many people are showing a very good effect in terms of mental clarity, can focus more. Here is the net result is improved focus, improved memory, sharpened senses, increased energy efficiency, fight mental fatigue, and so on. Now, when you combine Micro Daily with Brain Boost, you see all those things in the same thing in an optimal amount. Also, it improved the immune function, which is very important. At my age of soon to be 85, I never get sick. And I don't know, my granddaughter gets sick, but I don't. I mean, she goes to school and bring all kind of cold and virus, but I don't. They get surprised because I'm taking these micronutrient and Brain Boost. My brain is still working. I don't know how long it will work, but here's my mentor or my people who inspired me to enter into the micronutrient field is Dr. Linus Pauling, and I was a great admirer of him. And as David mentioned, I organized 7 conferences, and I always invited him as a keynote speaker. Was it some selfish reason? Because bringing him in the audience, you will have all kind of television people come, so your meeting gets more publicized. So there was some self-interest, but he was kind enough that every time and I will tell you a little story about him. In one meeting, we were having a dinner, and in a conference call, you get a 2 free ticket. I don't know if here you get a free ticket for a drink or not, but this is a routine procedure. They get a 2, and then you go and have a drink and a dinner. So he was ahead of me, and so he gave both tickets to the fellow. And he said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want vodka." So he took vodka. And in those days, I used to like Manhattan, so I just took Manhattan. And so we sat down and just chatting one to one. And I said, "They have all kind of fancy drink. Why you order vodka?" He said, "Well, when I was a graduate student in Berkeley, I tested all alcohol. And vodka is the only one which is completely pure. There is no contamination. You don't get a hangover until you drink more vodka. But normally you don't." And then said, "Okay." Then he drank the vodka like a Coke. He drank all at one time. And so I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Oh, sure." I said, "Well, people drink slowly, chat. Why you drink all the time, all at one time?" He said, "Well, I don't like the taste of the drink, but I like to feel a little high, relax." So here is a 2 Nobel laureate talking to me like this. I was said, he has figured out everything, why he does it. But anyway, so he was there. The next one I'm going to talk about Micro Daily Plus. And Dr. Pauling inspired me to come to Micronutrient. And David Nemelka, who you think is a businessman, he inspired me to enter into the game of CBD because I was totally ignorant. And so he called me once, he said, what do you think of CBD, adding in a Micro Daily? I was surprised. I said, Micro CBD? He said, yeah, many people are thinking about this thing. My inner reaction was, this is a bad idea, but I didn't tell him. And but I started doing, because I never turned down anything. So I started doing some research, and during next 3 months, I at least reviewed 500 or more paper on CBD alone. And I was so much impressed. Then I called him, I said, David, you are correct, let's do it. And that's the origin. So I owe, not I, but all of you owe the CBD inclusion in the Micro Daily. Credit goes to David Nemelka, and I was just doing some research on that. So I will talk to you some uniqueness, why we decided to do it. In our body, we have a two highly evolved system to defend against oxidative stress or any kind of interest. One is antioxidant system that we knew for a long time. And there is another one, endocannabinoid system. From evolution point of view, you can see which appeared first. Antioxidant system evolved some 4 billion years ago when oxygen first appeared in the Earth's atmosphere. And at that time, some microorganisms were living in the ocean happily without oxygen. When oxygen appeared, they start dying because the oxygen toxicity produces starting free radicals. And those microorganisms who developed or forced to develop by nature antioxidant system survived and participated in a future evolutionary course. So it is much older. However, endocannabinoid system appeared much, much later because it is only found in the vertebrates, like we are vertebrates, mice, rat, frog, anybody who is under the group of vertebrate, and it existed for millions and millions of years, endocannabinoid system. But it was discovered only in 1992. You can imagine, this system was discovered only in 1992. And how it discovered? We will have to thanks to marijuana plant. Without that plant, we could not, still another million years, we could not have discovered it. So one American scientist said, because everybody knew marijuana is plant, makes you high, this kind of stuff. But somebody isolated THC and CBD. And the CBD doesn't cause any euphoric effects. So nobody was interested in investigating CBD at that time. And so, but THC, they started investigating because it was causing euphoric effect. And then discovered, THC binds with a receptor in the brain. They call CB1 receptor, and then CB2 receptors, and then whole endocannabinoid system within the next 5 years established or identified. So we have now two highly evolved systems that we know. Now, antioxidant system consists, as we know all now, superoxide dismutase. We have antioxidant enzymes such as superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, and catalase. We have antioxidant compound. We know some of which we take from the diet, some of which we make ourselves. So this was all well established. But endocannabinoid system consists of not only receptor that we all knew, but it also consists of a small molecules like anandamide and another one, say 2-AG, is a long name, arachidonyl glycerol. And so for me, I just say 2-AG. It's easy to remember. But anyway, so they have a complex system. And they have also all the enzymes that make them, all the enzymes that they degrade them. So now we know a great deal about endocannabinoid system. So normally, both antioxidant system and endocannabinoid system remains low, but help to maintain balance in our body in a low level. Both systems are activated if you have a short-term oxidative stress or inflammatory stresses to provide protection against them. So if it is short-term, like you are doing aerobic exercise or you are doing something when you use a lot of oxygen, so short-term stress, then they get elevated and protected. However, if you have a chronic oxidative damage and chronic inflammation, they overtake the protective system of both antioxidant and endocannabinoid system, and that leads to various kind of chronic diseases. Now, activation, if you activate antioxidant system and endocannabinoid system, this is essential for reducing those cellular defects, namely increased oxidative damage and inflammation. Antioxidant system is activated by NRF2. As I mentioned, the NRF2 is activated by antioxidant compound. However, endocannabinoid system is activated only by CBD, and CBD from hemp is now safe and legal all throughout the country. Now, protective action of Micro Daily, we know, for example, it donates, that is one of the mechanisms of antioxidant. It donates electron to molecule which has an unpaired electron and then become neutral. So then they are no more dangerous. It also activates NRF2 to enhance the level of antioxidant enzymes. It restores the deficiency of antioxidant to normal level. It prevents the release and toxicity of glutamate. It also reduces pro-inflammatory cytokines. So these are the way that Micro Daily works. Now you will see that how CBD works. CBD activates cannabinoid receptor 2. It also activates non-cannabinoid receptor such as dopamine receptor, serotonin receptor, adenosine receptors. So the main function is to stimulate the various receptors. It also, CBD, deactivates certain receptors. For example, it deactivates CB1R. It also deactivates glutamate receptor because it will prevent the accumulation of glutamate, which, as you know, is extremely toxic. So you can see that Micro Daily and CBD works totally by different mechanisms. And if these events you give to even a high school student and you ask them to predict, if I combine them, will they do a better job? They will say yes, because they are both are non-toxic, and you combine them, they work by different mechanisms, and that's why we did it. So Micro Daily makes sense. These are all you name the disease where CBD by itself is helpful. But I can tell you that in animal model is very cooperative, very nice. You can get a positive result with a single antioxidant, with a single CBD. Very nice, because they cooperate, they feel happy. But humans are much more complex. They don't cooperate. So if you use a single antioxidant or just CBD alone, it will have some value, but not very much. Because CBD cannot take care of oxidative stress and inflammation. You have to have a Micro Daily to do that. CBD can stimulate the receptor that Micro Daily has protected it. But without protection, CBD may not be as effective, because if receptors are damaged, CBD cannot work. But if you have protected receptor by antioxidant and from inflammation, now CBD will be happy to work and do the job. So in the end, we can say the perfect combination for your health and well-being is Micro Daily Plus. And for example, I want to assure you my participation in the following word of Frost, poet Frost, that woods are dark, deep and blue, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go and miles to go before I sleep. At my old age, I guarantee you that I will be there for miles to go and for miles to go. Thank you.